Thank you, and I renamed my talk because it's Lent, using the tools of the devil to do good works. And I do that because social investment, social finance have become sort of really fairly trendy. And there's a bit of a profession that's grown up which is sort of mystifying the process, as often happens in professional circles. So it makes people wonder, what the hell is it all about, bonds and stuff. It all sounds sort of interesting, but actually not terribly relevant. So I want to go back to basics. Why is it relevant? And it's actually very simple. You have three sectors. You have the public sector, for whom acquiring assets and capital is bloody easy, because they print money or they bonds or they just run a huge deficit. So that's easy. The private sector develop a business plan, they go to the bank, they get a loan, or not, as the case may be. But they acquire capital, and then they use capital to acquire more capital. They use their assets and they sweat their assets. And that's how, effectively, our private sector and how a capitalist system works. When you look at our sector, we are cut off from access to capital, by and large. And so if we want to raise money, we have to fundraise, or we make money on contracts, etc. So, you know, Bernardo's will have brilliant ideas for tackling problems with kids, developing early intervention, but basically they have to fundraise for it, and that limits what they can do. If they had access to capital to acquire buildings and the like, or even just to fund the cash flow they need to expand, they could expand. And acquiring capital, of course, helps you to acquire more capital. We've been cut off from that in our sector. And this is about using the tools of the devil to actually rectify that. So as a new form of funding for what we do, I think this offers huge and very interesting and exciting possibilities. And I'm just going to illustrate that by a couple of examples from the social investment business. Now, I've been in terms of this industry, I have been around since Methuselah, because I was appointed chair of the Venture Capital Fund 7 years ago. This is when it wasn't trendy, and where people in the sector thought it was wicked. You know, loans are wicked. Isn't that right, Cliff? But we started off, interestingly, we started off small amount of money, 5 million quid, and we started off with community enterprise. So we started hard end, small organisations, local organisations, no asset base, traditionally very risky. And we've made it work. Alt Valley Community Enterprise, very, very interesting bunch of people. Liverpool, very difficult area. They started with a loan from us to purchase an underused old people's home. They've now bought a church, a farm, and a row of shops. Oh, and they're in the process of developing a leisure centre. So we've loaned them 5 million quid. No way could they have got that money from anywhere else. They couldn't have fundraised for that, or it'd be bloody difficult. The council, this is Liverpool. So they've borrowed the money and they've made it work, and they now contract with DWP, with the council, etc., provide services, old people, young people, much needed regeneration in that community. That's a great example, and an example of a different sort. The parents of autistic kids in North London getting a crap service from the state. The state is often useless in delivering education to people with disabilities, particularly autism. So these parents decided actually they'll do it themselves. They'll set up their own school. This was in the days before free schools, by the way. How were they going to do that? Well, actually, we gave them a loan of 5 million, one of our biggest loans, and they've developed Treehouse. Now, this is a school that isn't just about educating the kids there. They have developed a way of teaching which is now sort of a case study, and they are developing sort of a further education institute for teaching teachers to teach kids with autism. It's a brilliant thing. If you'd have had to have fundraised for that, we would still be at it now, a lottery or a raffle ticket or whatever. And they have a beautiful building which is a real asset on their balance sheets. So this offers huge potential. And I think for our sector, it's still slightly controversial, but I think for our sector, as we gear up to deliver more public services, as we should, as we gear up to meet the challenges in the localism bill, the right to acquire assets, for example, we will need access to capital. And we'll need to get more sophisticated. Government will need to get more sophisticated at it. And the prize for me, it's my final point, the prize for me is when we persuade the mainstream banking and financial industry and people like the EU to start thinking loans and to think that it's a mainstream activity and the third sector is a new asset class.